I'm William, a man who will turn 56 this year. About 30 years ago, I was involuntarily admitted to a mental hospital. However, I swear I am not mentally ill. What I'm about to tell you is not a delusion either. I was betrayed by my wife and a psychiatrist for 5 long years. I was forced to live a lonely and restrictive life. This happened 3 years after I got married to my wife, Isabella. One day, I was using my lunch break to return home from work to retrieve something I had forgotten. When I entered the parking lot in front of my apartment, a high-end car was parked in the usual spot where I normally parked my car. At that time, I thought it might have been a visitor from another apartment. But when I opened the door to my house, I saw a pair of unfamiliar leather shoes. And when I opened the door leading to the bedroom, I heard a noise. There, on the bed that was supposed to be the sanctuary of a married couple, was Isabella in the arms of another stranger, in her birthday suit. "What are you doing, Isabella?" "Well, why are you here? What happened to work?" "I had forgotten some important documents at home, so I came back to retrieve them. But I never thought you would cheat on me by bringing another man here." "It's not like that. This person—" "How is it not like that when you're embracing him like this in our own bed? When did you start hiding this from me?" "Come on, calm down. You're getting too worked up, and we can't have a proper conversation like this," Isabella's lover said calmly as Isabella and I were in the middle of our argument. I later found out that he was a psychologist at a mental health clinic. I suppose he thought that with his experience counseling patients, he could easily talk down to me like this. "You see, William, there is a deep reason why I'm doing this with her." "What kind of deep reason? No matter the circumstances, there's no good reason to lay a hand on someone else's wife." "Please calm down. Just listen to me. Isabella and I have been friends since our student days. I was just listening to her problems." "Just listening to her problems? Then what do you call what you're doing now?" This is part of your wife's stress-relieving routine. Her husband has been too busy with work lately and doesn't care," she said. She said, "I had no choice but to keep her company. Consulting about those kinds of worries? You slept with someone else's wife. Don't you even have a single word of remorse?" I was furious at his completely unapologetic attitude and his condescending attitude, so I punched him as hard as I could with my fist. However, I have never been in a fight in my life before, and my punch was not very powerful. At most, I could make an opponent who was hit by surprise fall on his butt, but I've never been in a fight in my life, and it seemed it was the same for him. The thin smile he had from before had completely disappeared. Whoa, what are you doing? Even my father has never hit me before." "So what? You asked for it. It's your own fault." I heard it from Isabella. You're the lowest paid worker at your work, right? How could a poor person like you—" "That's awful. How can you suddenly start hitting him like this? Apologize to him." "Don't mess with me. Why do I have to apologize? If you want to be with him so much, then get out of this house." "Okay, I'll just leave then." And that's how I ended up separating from Isabella. I had no intention of continuing a relationship with a woman who had betrayed me. I accepted it as inevitable, but then a problem arose later. A few days later, Isabella came to my house with 2 police officers. "We received a report from someone named Roger who has pressed charges against you." "I'm sorry, but could you come talk at the station?" "Wait, what? I don't understand." It was the fact that I had hit Isabella's lover, but I thought that if I explained the situation properly, the police would understand. I did as I was told and decided to go to the police to turn myself in. However, what I heard at the station was completely unfamiliar crimes and shocking facts. At the time, I was falsely accused by Isabella and her lover of attempted murder. Of course, I flatly denied the charges. The harm I did to Isabella's lover was just a single puny punch. Of course, I had no intention of killing the adulterer, nor did I remember trying to do so. But Isabella and the man she was having an affair with were more prepared than I had thought possible. The man had already prepared a medical certificate for the police of a sprained cervical vertebra and internal bleeding in the neck. He submitted it as evidence. He claimed that I had strangled and nearly killed him. Isabella then bribed the apartment neighbors and friends to act as witnesses. And together with her own parents, she testified that I had beaten her daily. But the truly frightening part came after. After my case was dropped due to a lack of evidence, Isabella even got my relatives and parents involved. She began to insist loudly that I should be committed to a mental hospital. My parents were the only ones who believed in my innocence, but in the end the other relatives forced me to be hospitalized in a mental hospital. "I'm not sick! Get out of here now!" I pleaded my case many times during my stay in the hospital, but no one believed me. Or rather, they had no intention of listening to my words from the start. That's how I felt. Because the mental hospital I was admitted to was run by Isabella's lover, the medical director, everyone was afraid of retribution, fearing retaliation from that man. They couldn't make a diagnosis in my favor, and about 6 months after I was admitted to the mental hospital, Isabella came to visit me for the first time and told me this shocking fact. "Your father and mother are dead." "What? What are you talking about?" "I know you can't accept the reality, but it's true." "Wait a minute. I was fine before I was admitted here." "That's right, I was perfectly normal then." "You brought this upon yourself. The fact that you were seriously mentally ill must have come as a shock." What? You guys did this." "Oops, you better not say anything weird here. They'll think you're crazy and put you in the restraint ward. Well, we'll take care of the funeral. You just stay in the hospital. Isabella, don't you dare! I was taken to a confinement ward due to the fact that I wanted to inflict harm on Isabella. The treatment was harsh afterwards. My parents, my only allies, were gone, so Isabella thought she could do whatever she wanted. I was eventually released from the mental hospital 5 years later, but that wasn't because Isabella had a change of heart, nor was it because her lover allowed me to leave the hospital. It was because the hospital fell apart due to an incident. It was a story about how one person was abandoned irresponsibly by society because there was no one to take him in. It was also proof that my revenge was complete. One day, a reporter from a newspaper or a weekly magazine came to be hospitalized on the same floor as me. It was what he called a hidden investigative report. He was a journalist trying to make the public aware of the situation at the then poorly run mental hospital through his own personal experiences there. I told him openly about the disaster that had befallen me without hiding anything. Of course, there was no longer any proof of Isabella's affair. I talked about what had happened to me in the hospital, about the terrible things done to me by the director and the doctors. At the time, there was a lot of mistreatment of people at the hospital, and they didn't treat people as human beings. The evidence was sufficient to accuse the hospital director, Isabella's lover, and the article written by the journalist was later picked up by television and newspapers. As a result of all the bad press coverage, the hospital was shut down. I later heard that Isabella's lover, the hospital director, after the hospital was shut down, was found hanging dead in the director's office. But my revenge did not end there. The person who betrayed me had locked me up in the mental hospital and became the wife of the hospital director was still alive. I left the mental hospital and headed to Isabella's house on foot. It's been a long time, Isabella. I heard you left your husband as soon as he started to get criticized by the public. I heard you left him and ran straight back to your parents' house. Well, why are you even here? Aren't you supposed to be transferred to another hospital? Unfortunately, I was diagnosed as being under remission during the counseling before my transfer. Well, the fact that I was even diagnosed with a mental illness was a mistake in the first place, so it's no surprise that this happened. Well, what are you doing here now? Don't tell me you came for revenge. I wouldn't want to cause harm to you and end up back in the hospital after all. Then what are you doing here? I've come to declare a war on you. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take away all the wealth you gained from marrying him, so be prepared. That is how Isabella and I ended up in court. It was a very difficult trial, but in return for my cooperation in the interview, a journalist at the time helped fund and collect evidence. Thanks to his cooperation, the case ended in victory for me. I succeeded in getting a huge settlement of $350,000 from Isabella. Isabella lost all her money because of it. I heard she then jumped off a building to follow her husband. But hearing the news of her death, my heart was not shaken or moved. Maybe after the lengthy stay in the mental hospital, I may really have gone crazy. 30 years later. I now live modestly with a wife the same age as me, and a daughter who will turn 20 this year. Even though it was the scheme of a bad person, the fact that I was in a mental hospital will follow me as a curse for the rest of my life. Thanks to the support of kind people, I am now able to work normally and live peacefully. But there are sometimes people who look at me and with my family with cold eyes. No matter what kind of ill will the world may expose me to, I am not disturbed, even when I heard that Isabella had died. This is not because my heart is broken, but because I have a family to protect now. The fact that I wasn't the person for Isabella is a little painful, but I will continue to live diligently to protect my family. Thank you for watching. We look forward to your next viewing. Please consider subscribing to our channel.